Yeah, that's cool. I just thought on your vlog for your site, you might want to talk to somebody who, as actually was alive when the first Star Wars.
Good morning, Internet. My name is Zim. This is AmmoCan Gaming, and we've got a special treat for you today. Um, a real live, lifelong fan of Star Wars. We both went and saw independently, but we both saw uh, Rogue One, a Star Wars tale, yesterday, and we're going to be talking about it real quick. And just so you know, spoilers. We will be talking the shit out of some spoilers. If you are going to be bitching about spoilers, shut the video off right now and go fucking watch the movie, asshole.
That
Okay.
reminds me of a conversation I had about Game of Thrones a few years ago.
Oh, right. You were talking about the books, and this dickhead is only watching the TV show and tells you to stop talking about spoilers when the books have been out for
20 years.
we haven't even started and we're already off on a tangent.
Okay, yeah, Rogue One.
um, my kind of first impression of it is Greek tragedy in space.
Very much so. It was, it's the classic hallmarks of all the Greek tragedies. Everyone dies.
Well, yeah, there's
You,
that, but there's also like everyone kind of has their own little search for redemption going on, and or at least closure. Um, the two guys, the monk and his bodyguard, I didn't really kind of uh, get that feeling from, but everyone else really did kind of have their own need for closure.
for another point of view on the monk and his bodyguard, I actually did pick up a need for closure with him. That's only because I'm a huge Star Wars geek. They kind of passively, offhandedly mentioned that he was a temple guard guarding the kyber crystals.
Oh, right, right, right.
And if you know anything about Star Wars, which is now Legends instead of canon, but since they haven't covered it, I use anything they haven't covered. In Legends, I use as canon because it's the only thing we have.
Right.
Uh, he would have been a member of what is called the Jedi Corps,
Mm-hmm.
Force sensitive who never got taken as an apprentice and was assigned to tasks within the Jedi Order. And he would have been assigned to tasks like a Temple Guardian, and he sees himself as a failure because they said like 4 times in that scene in the city that the temple was destroyed, it was wrecked, the Kyber was gone. And I
Right.
kind of got a sense that he was trying to make up for what he perceived as his own personal failure.
Right, but what about the guy with the big fucking gun who was guarding him?
He's actually in Star Wars Rebels, the cartoon show.
Really?
Yeah, that's a character. Well, no, that was Forrest Whitaker's character.
Yeah, Forrest
Mm.
Whitaker's character.
Yeah,
Uh, I keep mistaking his name for like Che Guevara, but that's basically kind of who he was, wasn't it?
yeah, I think so. The one thing that I did not take away from this movie, and I think it was just because I was just so excited to see it. I don't really remember the names of any of the characters. That's not a slight on the movie. The movie is very, very good. I was just like, I was just like 3 years old again, sitting in the theater watching a brand new Star Wars movie. It just,
Yeah. Well, I got
man,
that same thing, but I'm terrible with names. And also, they didn't spend a lot of time addressing each other by name, except for Jin, who was the main character. She was the one who was kind of the driving force in the whole thing. And Kit, shit, the guy's
the
name,
pie. Oh yeah, yeah.
intelligence
I can't
officer,
remember. Yeah,
Mr. Intelligence Officer. I'm gonna pull up the IMDb.
it's probably a good idea. There's one thing I did take away from the movie is there wasn't a whole lot of there was a big cast in the main character,
Mhm.
and you might not remember the names so much, but they did such a really good job of character development that you actually get attached to like each and every character, even if where it was such a big cast. There
Right.
was still that thud right in the chest at the end because it's like, oh, this guy only had 4 minutes of screen time, but oh no, they it was just that just shows how well written the movie was and how well shot it was.
Right. Cassian. There we go.
Cassian, yeah, yeah.
Played by Diego Luna. I'm not familiar with like 90% of these people. Like I know Alan Tudyk, who played K2SO. Um, that droid was kind of funny, but I didn't get all that attached to him.
I liked him. Like he
Yeah,
was
I
very
liked him
likable
too.
for a droid.
I just don't think he had enough of a rapport with the other characters. Because like he only ever really interacted with Jin and Cassian.
Yeah, and he is a droid. I mean, I think we're spoiled from the original three trilogy because everybody loves R2 and 3PO so much that we're expecting so much out of the droids in any movie. And then you have the Force Awakens with BB-8. He was an amazing character, and you got really attached to him. And then you have another droid, and it's like I think we might be putting a little bit of that on top of it. Like we were expecting more from the droid than we got, but that's just my
Well,
opinion.
in Star Wars, droids are kind of a weird thing because they are machines who serve a purpose. They have programming that they can't deny, and yet within that programming, they still have a form of self awareness and self initiative. So they're kind of this cross between a tablet and a slave. So it's really weird.
Well, and also, and what another weird layer on top of that is it's a cross between a tablet and a slave, but the slave is fine with his position, which has kind of always irked me a little bit, because I got into this big discussion with somebody a few years back about droids and should they, because they're programmed to be slaves and they love their work, but does that make it worse?
Yeah, like this is going to be a whole nother can of worms that we should probably save for another day. But
Yes, yes. Back to the movie. The one thing that really hit me really hard within the first literally 4 seconds of the movie, there was no text crawl.
I wasn't really bothered by that, but it was noticeably absent. Yes.
Yeah, I didn't say it bothered me. Yeah, I agree with you. It didn't bother me as much, but it was like you had the Lucas starts, and then here came the a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and I was expecting that.
Yeah, the music.
And then it just went to a shot of the planet, and I was like, uh,
On the other hand, that with the rest of the movie having that different tone, like that opening music and the text crawl and everything, that tells you you're in for an adventurous epic, and it's kind of that. It gives you that awesome feeling. Like when I saw Force Awakens, I was just like you. I was in the theaters. I was a little kid again. I was literally tearing up when I was watching Force Awakens. I didn't have that feeling this time, but it was, I think, a lot more appropriate because it did allow it to have a more dark theme this time.
yeah. And this movie is definitely dark.
Especially
And I have a statement that I want to talk about when we get to the end of the movie, and it's kind of, in my opinion, it was profound because I came up with it, and immediately, and you're gonna know who I'm talking about. Immediately after we got back to his apartment, Josh stole my line. It was like, I was like, "That's my line." He goes, "Yep, stole it. It was good." So, when we start discussing the end of the movie, I wanna bring that line up because I think it's funny. But we tangent all the time. Back to the movie.
yeah, hazards of talking to you though.
Well, that and we haven't actually hung out in a few months either. So I mean, there's that.
Yeah.
But yeah, they did a really good job with establishing the main character's background in the opening few scenes with the on the farm,
Hmm.
and then you had the he's not a captain, the guy in white. He's on
Oh,
my head.
right. The I'm trying to remember what his title was. Um,
Oh, man.
I'm looking on the IMDb right now. Let's see. Who the hell was he? Well, I just lost your video.
Yeah, I minimized Skype by accident. I meant to.
Oh.
Yeah, I was trying to.
Draven? Was that his name? General
Yes,
Draven?
yes, that was his name. Draven.
Oh wait, no.
Oh
General
no, Draven.
Draven was the rebel
No,
guy.
he was Rebels.
Oh hell.
It wasn't a title that you associate
Right, because he was
much.
under he was under Moff Tarkin. Um,
I don't like the new. I really don't like the new IMDb either.
no, they changed it, and it's like it's kind of weird. Um, who was he? It was
I'm trying to. I can't. Wasn't a general.
it wasn't General. It was
Seems like it started with the D. I think it started with the D.
director. Was he a director?
Director. Yes, yes, yes. Director.
Okay. Director who then? And speaking of who, they got friggin' uh he played the American Doctor Who. Um,
Got him. It was where's he at? It was Orson, director Orson.
Director Orson. Okay, Orson Krennic. There we go. They didn't give him his
Yeah,
title
they
on
have a
the.
picture. Well, his picture is like from 30 years ago.
God damn it, IMDb.
He gave him a picture of like in his 20s when he was in high college or something. All right. But yeah, they with him coming into the planet and landing, and at the farm, it's like you really got this sense of the Empire was young, but it still had this, you know, ominous presence to it. They set up the family, how much he loved his daughter, his wife. I mean, the writing in this was really good. It wasn't what you would call Star Wars writing. It was more along the lines of massive drama writing, and I thought they did a pretty good job with it.
Peter Cushing. That's the guy I was trying to think of earlier. Um, he was under Peter Cushing playing Moff Tarkin. Um, my speaking of him, my dad, who went to go see this with me, he was kind of put off by what he called zombie Peter Cushing.
Yeah,
Because like
the technology is better than it was under Tron when they did that to Jeff Bridges, but it's still not quite there. The uncanny valley is definitely
and like
prominent.
they credited someone else as playing Moff Tarkin, but they overlaid his face, and it looks fine now. I don't think that's going to be the case in like 4 years, though. Like in 4 years, when they've got like another couple of Star Wars movies out, we're going to come back, we're going to watch this, and zombie Peter Cushing is going to stand out like a sore thumb.
Probably. But if you stay to the end of the credits, there was a little special section just at the bottom, just as the credits were ending, where they did credit uh, all of the people that they replaced in the movie. It was like the very last section of credits. They even
Oh,
like gave credit to Carrie Fisher and all of them at the bottom of the credits. But it probably should have been up there like a comma or something like Grandma Tarkin, this guy slash this guy.
and speaking of Carrie Fisher, this is skipping to the very end of the movie, but the woman they got to play Princess Leia looked so much like young Carrie Fisher.
Oh, that was another CG. They altered her face a little bit with CG too, but
It
it was
wasn't a
really
whole
good.
lot. they didn't alter a whole lot. Like I think it was a lot of makeup, but they didn't alter her a whole heck of a lot. Like she looked
That's the one
real.
thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I mean she looked real.
And that just before that scene when they came in there and he said this is gold leader the gold squadron, and they put the face of the picture that from they spliced in the Death Star run picture with a little touch up, and it was like all the people that were on the Death Star run. And I was just I was in the theater, and like everybody in the theater went whoa. Because it was just that jarringly cool to see you know the connection between the two movies that they did really well at the end. I mean, it was really they really did a really good job.
Yeah, it was awesome. And
But
like another thing that I saw just on the technical aspect was they made everything look kind of cleaner and newer, but they still did a really good job of keeping everything um, set with what it looked like in A New Hope, in terms of like the targeting computers and all that. Like when they're in the ships, you see the profile from the Imperial pilot's perspective. It looks kind of like an Atari game where the targeting X-wing is like dancing around their that reticle, and then it locks on, and and they fire. It looks just like it did in A New Hope, just slightly updated just a little bit. And they're gonna have more freedom to make it look newer and cleaner in like future movies for like the next ordinal movie. But like because this is so hard set in the events right before A New Hope, they didn't have any room to change what that targeting reticle looked like. And I thought that was a really nice job of cleaning it up but keeping it true to what it was supposed to be.
yeah, it really did have the look and feel of the original in a lot of places. I mean, in the uh, the stark contrast that I thought they did a really good job was when they were on Yavin with the rebel base.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was dirty. The X-wings were dirty. The command center was cramped and dark. And then when they would go to an Imperial base, everything was metal, shiny, sheen, brightly lit,
Mm-hmm.
and it gave a real good contrast between the two.
And
And
well,
I,
even
I
like the
really liked that.
locations that they were able to set up in, I think it was a really good attention to detail, because the rebels were in places that you would expect to find rebels. They were places where they're far away from other forms of civilization. They're cramped. They're dirty. They're holes that they just kind of squirrel away in. Whereas the Imperials are way out in the open. They're in the middle of cities. Um, that server planet that they're on for the final battle, where all the Death Star plans and everything are, that it's a really nice looking planet. Like that looks like the sort of planet that would be a reward to be stationed at, because it's so paradise like, and they just built the fucking tower right there on the island and the beaches. Like, you get off duty and you can just go hang out on the beach right there, if the Empire would let you do that. But it's just that it looks nice like that because they got to pick the location, and that's kind of that
Yeah,
symbol of power that I think that they have.
I'm getting some internet interference here.
Uh
Let me shut
oh.
this down. Yeah, I'm kind of. I agree with you on 100% of that, and I think it's also something that Lucas might have subconsciously done in the original movies. uh, because the original movies had the rebels like in hidey holes and stuff like that, and
Mm-hmm.
they didn't really show a lot of Imperial planets in the original series. They didn't show any of them actually. There were no Imperial. I don't count the special editions where they go to Coruscant or whatever.
No.
But I mean, I think it was something that was subconsciously done, or he might have actually done it because that was before he went nuts. I'm sorry, but I'm not a fan of prequels. Uh, but yeah, it was a really, really good setting for contrasting the Imperials, like you said. They they can choose where they go. The rebels kind of have to take what they get. Uh, I just and then the scene where the Rebel Alliance was sitting around the holograph projector debating on whether or not what they should do about this new weapon.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that the rebels. It was always hinted at in old canon, now legends, that before A New Hope, before the destruction of Alderaan, that the Alliance was kind of like ragtag. They didn't agree with a lot. They didn't have a codifying moment that brought them together to know what it is that they were fighting for until the destruction of Alderaan. And I think that scene where the generals of the alliance were all around the table, and some are like, "We surrender. We've got to hide. We've got to disperse the fleet. We've got to fight. We've got to do this." I thought that was a really well written scene, and I think someone that's not as deep into the lore as I am, or you are, or some of the other friends, probably wouldn't have caught that. But that scene was kind of it's a throwaway scene for just about anybody else. But if you actually know your Star Wars history and lore, and you see that scene is very pivotal, very moving. Because as a fan, we know what's coming.
Well, and even if you're not a fan, but you know history, you know that that exact scene in real world history has played out time and time again, because that exact sort of thing. You know, you've got your ragtag band of rebels who are trying to stand up to an empire, you know, all throughout history, and you have those exact same reactions. You know, we've got to go hide because they're sending their massive armies. We've got to surrender because we can't win. Maybe we can curry favor. And, you know, and then there's that small elite band of hardcores that decide we've got to go fight, and if we go fight, we know we're gonna die, but it's gonna have meaning. If not to the world, then to us. This is how we choose to die.
Yeah. And as soon as that scene was over, because it's only like a 3-minute scene, it's very short.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as that scene was over, to me, I was like, wow, that was a really hard hitting scene. Because, like I was saying, as a Star Wars fan and have seen all the movies, you know what's happening in like a week. You know exactly what's going to happen in like a week. Then you got Bail Organa at the end of the scene. He's sitting there. He's like, I've got to return to Alderaan because I've got, he's got stuff to take care of, and you know what's going to happen to him.
Mm-hmm.
Here's this character that's shown up in the prequels that you've heard about in Legends, and now he doesn't have a big role in this movie, but he's there. And then this guy that's been built up for like 3 movies, and is really passionate about the rebellion. He just does this soft shot line. He goes, "I've got to return to Alderaan to try to curry favor," and you know what's happening in 3 days.
Yeah.
It makes that scene really punch.
Well, and then there's also later when they're saying, you know, we need to have someone carry this information. It has to be someone you can trust. And all he says is, "I would trust her with my life."
Yeah.
And then she shows up. But of course, that also means she was there. She was on that ship at the raid. And I don't remember. I don't know which ship it was that they deployed. That
the Custodian was the name of the blockade runner that's at the very beginning. The Corellian Corvette's called the Custodian.
But it deployed out of another ship.
That really irked me. That's the one scene at the end that really irked me, because the Custodian was at the battle. Vader saw it launch, and there's a couple of lines in A New Hope. Leia's like, this is a counselor ship. We're on a diplomatic mission. It's like, he saw you there. You know he was there. That was kind of I was like, okay, I guess I can deal with that. But they were trying to link it. I think it would have been better if instead of they were running and handing it to her, they should have been fighting their way to a transmitter and then transmitted it out.
Right, like maybe a shorter mini scene of that fight that had just happened planet side.
Yeah, it's the end sequence that I was telling you that I wanted to talk about. I had a line from that. When all that was going on, instead of fighting their way to get aboard the Custodian, they should have been fighting their way to the bridge or to the communication center of the capital ship.
Mm-hmm.
And then they could have extended that scene by about 30 seconds while they were holding it off, and then the last scene before the last guy died would be like, transmission away, and then he would die. then you could still have that little short sequence with Leia at the end, but instead of them handing her the chip and showing the ship blast off, they could have had everything the same. It just should have been a transmission, because everybody knew that ship was there, and Leia, who was very smart, saying, we're on a diplomatic mission. It just kind of doesn't make sense anymore. And
Yeah.
that's the one part.
Plus, there's also the problem of 3PO and R2 have to be on that ship as well, because they were there in A New Hope. But the last time we saw them in Rogue One, they were on Yavin 4, groundside. They were not on any sort of starship.
Yeah. I mean, but that's plot holes that happen in movies, and these movies have been strung along. These movies have been going since 1977. So I mean,
And
almost 40
mean, you
years.
can kind of assume that in the scramble they did grab everybody to go with the fleet, so they would have gone as, Leia's attendants, because they probably did belong to Leia.
Well, you also got to see that in the very last scene we see 3PO and R2 in Revenge of the Sith is Bail Organa assigning them to the custodian, and that scene with R2 and 3PO happened before the scene where, well, around the same time as the scene where Organa was saying, "I've got to return to Alderaan."
Mm-hmm.
So, and the custodian is the royal family ship.
Yeah.
So maybe the custodian was there and he took them with him, because they did belong to the custodian. But all in all, it's just little things like that it doesn't ruin the film, but it kind of makes you go, they could have done it like this. But
Yeah.
anyway, back to the beginning of the film again.
We're jumping all over the place.
But we're staying on topic though. We're just kind of jumping around the movie as we go.
Sure.
But see, after the scene in the farm where they take him hostage, you then goes to the main character again. Her name just left my head.
Jin?
Yeah, Jin, in prison at a Imperial work camp,
Mm-hmm.
and that scene was really pivotal in showing her attitude as well, because she's on board with stormtroopers. Then, boom, they look right at her and say, "We're here to rescue you," and she just kicks the hell out of the people to try to, she's just like, "I don't need rescue. What are you talking about? You blew the door." They kind of showed her rebellious nature, just like in a little 30-second scene, and then it's like they've grabbed a viper by the tail, and now they've got to figure out what to do with her, and it kind of shows you why she's in prison. It's like, okay, I get that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty nice. Um, the whole scene with the planet, what was the name of that planet? The first one they go to with the Jedi Temple, starts with
Oh,
an A. Um,
Jeddah.
Jeddah, thank you. And then when they go to Jeddah, I thought they did a really nice shot of showing in oppressive nature at Jeddah too, because you had the Star Destroyer parked right over top of the city. I mean, like,
Right over top of the temple.
yeah, just right there. Just like, and then they had stormtroopers in the streets everywhere with tanks. People were looking down, and when the stormtroopers came, they would avert their eyes or they would stop. It was just like, it's like, okay, that was really nicely done. It's like, good job. And
Mm-hmm.
then they had talked about the militaristic nature of that splinter cell, and then they showed you the militaristic nature of that splinter cell. They attacked the stormtroopers right in the middle of the street with zero regard
Right.
for the populace that were around. They even showed a couple of just innocent bystanders getting killed with grenade blasts.
Right. And
It's
then
like
Jin having to save the little girl.
Jen saving the little girl, and then you had that group of there was the tank, and you had a group of civilians that were taking the kyber crystals out of the tank. Then
Mm-hmm.
it showed the militant on the bridge getting ready to throw a grenade right at the tank, but you still had all of those innocents down there.
Yeah.
And then him shooting him
Yeah,
just to say,
Cassian
like,
blasting him.
yeah. Then Cassian blasting him. It's like, you can't do that. It's like that. It's like you're becoming what we're fighting. And
Yeah, and then
it,
that one twat waffle sub lieutenant to uh, let me look at his name here. Saw Gerrera. Uh, he was only concerned about the fact that the guy shot one of his men, even though one of his men was going to murder like 5 civilians.
Yeah, yeah. It was just like, it's like, can't you see that we're no friends of the Empire? It's like, tell that to the man. Tell that to the guy who shot my man. You know, 15 dead civilians around them that they caused. It's like, you shot my man. It's like, what do you think you're doing? It's like, oh man, really?
And
Really?
then, oh, there was that fucking Lovecraftian abomination that, like, tortured the mind of the pilot. I can't remember the pilot's name right off the bat. Um,
Well, they
or
only said it like
Orson.
twice.
Yeah, but it was still that abomination. I thought he was going to show up again, like after Jin showed up. I thought he was going to pull that guy out, and like, what was the point there? I mean, like, you have this beast who apparently can act as a natural lie detector. You don't pull him out later. Like, just have Saw torture the guy, and that's A, something more relatable that we can understand, and B, you don't have to pull it out again because it's not that interesting. But this fucking tentacled beast monster that has telepathic powers, you never pull that back out again. That's kind
Yeah,
of bad world building.
a lot did happen like right after that. I mean, they did have a lot go on right before that, but I kind of agree with that. I mean, if they were going to pull that thing out to show that how ruthless this guy was, then it should have been pulled out probably like maybe just before the big explosion. They were going to make sure they were there, but then not let it happen because the explosion happens.
Yeah, and maybe not like
But
point it at Jin, but maybe point it at Cassian because he was also captured, and like
yeah,
maybe
that's
have it
that's
happening on the side.
or in not maybe not even him using it as a torture device to torture him specifically, but be like have him in front of Jen because he did raise Jen, so he does have feelings, fatherly feelings for her.
Yeah.
So he could have it going towards Cassian and be like, "Why are you really here?" Like using it as a cattle prod, not like he was
Hmm.
actually going to do it.
Like a threat. Yeah.
Yeah, like a threat, and and it could have happened after the hologram. She got the message from her father, and just happened at all that time. But yeah, I kind of admit that I kind of agree with you that he probably should have brought that out again because it
Hmm.
was just a throwaway scene. You know, yeah, they were defending themselves because it was a Imperial pilot, so they needed to know if it was true. But yeah, that was kind of weird. They probably could have left that entire scene out because he made a point of saying that you can lose your mind with it, and the pilot was muttering to himself in the cell for a little bit, but then he got okay.
Well, he got okay slowly. Like he was still out of it when they got to that rocky planet where they crashed.
Yeah,
He was still out of it there, but he was fine by the time they had to fly into the server room. I can't remember what the fuck they called that planet. I'm just calling it the server planet.
it started with an S. It actually is the name of the planet from Legends. Actually, they really didn't change it, but I can't remember the actual planet name off the top of my head.
Uh, do they have a blurb on here? Uh, Plot synopsis. Um, do do do. See, Edu was the planet they crashed on.